Howdy! Bill Turner here from Oklahoma. How's your dog? Looks like I might have almost waited too long. I usually rely on natural light. It's getting late in the afternoon here, so we're a little bit dark, but it'll be alright. You can still see me. I can see you. I can't see you, but that's silly. But you can see me. How's everybody out there in YouTube land? So the insanity with Trump continues to pace as we expect. It will continue presumably as long as he's in office and for some time afterwards. Rumor has that he's still working on. Still working on his run for president in 2024, which in some ways is an admission that he lost in 2020. But with Donald Trump going, this is going inside that man's brain. But so there's a story on Twitter today that says the worst thing for Trump ever is to be branded a loser. And so that's part of the reason why he's being so recalcitrant about admitting that he lost, because it's the worst thing in his mind, in his addled brain, that he hates to be branded. When he wants to insult somebody else, he calls them a loser. That's the biggest insult for him. So and he really don't want to be a loser. So, but it's so interesting. Trump is such an interesting case study, and this is by no means original to me. This is a long-standing observation about human life, that it's amazing how human beings can do a really, really good job of bringing about the things they most fear by their desperate attempts to try to avoid it. And so that's pretty much what Trump has managed to do to himself. He could have just stayed in New York and, somebody put it, continue to rip people off as condo sales and bank prostitutes and do all that kind of fun, have fun, do all those things. But he decided he needed to run for president, which was in some ways the absolute worst, dumbest thing for him to do. Because then he surprised everybody by actually winning the presidency the first time. He just got lucky. And then now he's surprised that he lost. He did a really horrible job. And a lot of people, there's apparently a lot of paradigm people in 2016 were like, okay, well, we're not going to worry too much about this Trump guy. We'll give him a chance to let him go and win once, and it'll be okay. And they found out, whoops, it really wasn't okay. And by 2018, people were really, really upset with him. And that's why they returned the Democrats to the House, control the House of Representatives in 2018. So the Democrats could impeach him, which of course didn't work because Republicans refused to remove him in the Senate. But there it is. So. And now Trump has lost the election big time, and he refused to admit it. And right now, he's busy, as we've seen, he's busy trying to tear down as many things as he can, because he's acting like a petulant toddler who's going to destroy you. If he can't win the game, he's going to tear it up. So he's tearing up as much as he can. And one of the most worrisome things he's done recently is he's replaced several well-known high-profile people like Madeleine Albright, who are on this committee that's supposed to provide expert advice to the Department of Defense, with people whom he picked by hand, which presumably means they're Trump loyalists, which is pretty scary. And it's hard to imagine why he would be doing this, except for the fact that he's gearing up to invade Iran, which we really have to hope he doesn't do, because that would be a major disaster for all concerned. It would make the United States look really bad. It would, it wouldn't be nearly as easy as the invasion of Iraq was. It would get bogged down in another stupid war that we don't need to be bogged down in. It would kill people. It would cost huge amounts of money. It would be really stupid. We don't really do not want to invade Iran. It's obvious to me that it's a really bad idea. If the Iranians are saying out there, they're causing some trouble, a little bit of trouble, maybe, depending on how you want to look at it. But they're not stupid. They're not going to nuke anybody. That's ridiculous. Because they realize that if they nuke anybody, they get nuked themselves, and they're not as stupid as Donald Trump is, so they're not going to nuke anybody. I'm not. At least I'm worried that the Iranians nuke anybody. I think for us to invade Iran would be a really bad idea. So anyway, let's just hope. I mean, it'd be interesting to see whether or not, if Trump tells the Department of Defense to invade Iran, it'd be really interesting to see if they actually go through and do it. Now, what's more likely to do is actually order probably bombing raids, which is bad enough because we just kill a bunch of innocent Iranian people for no good reason, just to get Trump, just to assuage Trump's ego. Which, of course, that's all that Republicans want to do right now, is just help, pat poor little Trump on the head and make sure to try to get him to stop him throwing a temper tantrum. As Eric Swalwell said, when your 3-year-old's trying to throw a temper tantrum, you do it, you don't try to hurt the kid, but you just tell the kid, you need to stop throwing that temper tantrum, and come over here and let me wrap you up and I'll get you to stop throwing a temper tantrum one way or another. Just stop it, because temper tantrums are not acceptable. But for Republicans, they seem to think we should all sit here and just let Trump throw a temper tantrum. It's really kind of scary. But anyway, so also back in terms of the election here in the United States, I see that Dan Crenshaw, the lower Republican butt boy, is busy bleating about how we need to have national voter IDs. We talked about Rick Scott was already talking about this yesterday. Now I got Dan Crenshaw up to bat talking about, we need national voter ID. And boy, the overwhelming 75% of the public supports it, which I don't have any idea where he got that figure. I sort of doubt that's true. But anyway, it doesn't matter, because you know, this is the new vote. This is the new Republican line. Oh, voter fraud is such a huge problem. It is not. Voter fraud is not a problem. That is a lie. They are lying. They lie about Social Security. They lie about Medicare. They problems with the federal budget. They lie about how voter fraud is a huge problem. The only people who commit voter fraud are Republicans. So if Republicans just stop committing voter fraud, it wouldn't be a problem. It's interesting. They talk about how what a horrible problem voter fraud supposedly is, but these local, state and local Republican officials can't seem to find any. If it's this huge problem, then why aren't Republican local elected officials, elected and appointed officials for that matter, whether district attorneys or whoever, why aren't they finding it? You know, the Republicans, we've had 4 years now of Republican U.S. attorneys appointed by Donald Trump all over the country, and they are not prosecuting any voter fraud. It was such a huge problem. Why aren't they prosecuting? Why aren't they finding it and dealing with it? So it's not a problem at all. They're just making that up because they want to. And it really is ultimately just a cheap attempt to try to stop black people from voting. Because they realize black people, the problem is that, black people, they know black people don't vote Republican, hardly any black people vote Republican. And they're easy to spot. It's easy. Black people are still really easy to discriminate against. So they're just, they're just being lazy and stupid about how to try to win elections. Instead of coming up with policies that people might actually support, they're just going to keep bleeding about tax cuts, and more tax cuts. And let's see if we can figure out some way to stop black people from voting and make it easier for us to win. So, it's typical, lazy, stupid Republicans. But there you have it. They don't seem to be inclined to change anytime soon. So we'll just have to vote them down. So, and then as further example of this, so you remember that Trump paid for partial recount in Wisconsin. He picked out 2 counties, Milwaukee County and Dane County. Probably represents the majority of the black people in the state of Wisconsin. Because certainly Milwaukee is maybe a black majority county, but then between the 2 places where the most black people in Wisconsin are in Milwaukee and in Madison, which is Dane County. So they picked 2 heavily black counties in Wisconsin to recount. They finished the recount in Milwaukee, and it turned out added to Biden's lead. So, whoops, it had exactly the opposite side effect. Damn it, I hate when that happens. So he's totally screwing that up big time, and who knows? It doesn't really matter at this point how Dane comes out because Dane County isn't enough people to. He's not going to change the outcome in Wisconsin at this point. They just need to give that up. A group of so-called conservatives in Wisconsin have filed a suit directly with the Wisconsin State Supreme Court, asking the Wisconsin State Supreme Court to halt the election count and to declare that the Republicans won and to require the Democratic governor of Wisconsin to appoint the Republican slate of electors to the Electoral College on Trump's behalf in Wisconsin. Now, it is true that the Republicans have a majority, obviously naked Republicans have a majority in the state Supreme Court, but it'll be interesting to see whether or not they're willing to get beyond that, because that's a really big leap to throw out a solid majority for one candidate and tell the governor to appoint the electors for the other candidate would be a really, really big deal. And I kind of hard to believe that they'll actually go for that, but who knows? Of course, if they were truly conservative, they wouldn't do any of this, but they're not real conservative, they're fake conservatives, so no real conservative, even considering such a thing, but they're not real conservatives. So anyway, a reporter talked to a black preacher in Milwaukee who said it just looked to him like all Trump was doing is trying to take the votes away, and again, that's pretty much exactly what Trump's trying to do. Is he's trying to get rid of all the black votes because that's the only way he can ever win. And if you subtract all the black votes, he might win, but he can't. Certainly, the story is also about how not only the black votes, but in Georgia, the Asian vote. There's a substantial Asian minority now in Georgia, as well as a lot of black people, and they apparently all voted for. So you got Native Americans in every time voting for Biden. You got Asians and of course all over the country, black people voting for Biden, and then you got Asians in Georgia, and between and on the face of it, they might not seem to have too much in common. But members of just about any minority group can tell the Republicans don't like him. The Republicans don't, Trump hasn't explicitly picked on Asians. He's been surprised he's picked a fight with the Chinese in China. And referring to the COVID as the China virus, which is just really stupid and inflammatory and just kind of stirs people up again. And it's encouraging hate crimes against Asian people in general, because of course, obviously in the United States, all them Asians, it's all Chinese. I see an Asian guy, goddamn Chinese motherfuckers, you brought this virus over here, I'm gonna beat the shit out of you. That kind of stuff. I mean, that's a level of stupidity we're doing. It's Trump's worse, of course. So, then we saw, as we saw with them, so they're going to be more aligned with black people than they are with white people, in terms of Trump anyway. The black preacher in Milwaukee said just looked at him like there was an attempt to take the Trump votes away, and then of course we saw it back when they were still working on, they were still focused on Michigan before they got into Wisconsin. The local Republican official, elected county level Republican elected official, said we could just discard all the votes from Detroit, which it's Detroit here, and being a heavily black state. So they keep. I mean, did they really think we're not going to notice that this is what they're doing? That's what they're doing, and we should oppose it because it's really gross. We finally decided back in 1965 that we should make a concerted effort to make sure black people can vote because they're citizens. Why should they not be able to vote the same as everybody else? And there's just no good reason to try to exclude any group of people from voting. And so, and it's dumb and it's typical Republican bad policy, and so it's gross. But anyway, so now and then the Republicans in Arizona, the Arizona legislature, Republicans in the Arizona legislature is hearing. It's a fake hearing, it wasn't a real hearing. But they had it at a hotel. They'd say it was just theater. And of course, again, in Arizona, it's the natives who voted overwhelmingly for Biden and carried the state for Biden. And now Rudy Giuliani is busy telling the legislature of Pennsylvania that they can and should declare the popular vote in Pennsylvania invalid and appoint the slight Trump electors to the Electoral College for president from Pennsylvania by legislation. Well, the problem with that is that they already decided on their method for choosing electors, and they followed that method for choosing electors before the election. And so now they can go back and say, "Oopsie, do-overs! We didn't get the result we wanted, so we're going to change the rules now. We're going to completely change the rules and use a new set of rules so we get the outcome we want." This is the way that children play games, right? If you play a game with a child who realizes he or she's about to lose, they'll say, "Oh, wait, let's come with a whole new rule." Small children do that, and that's it's unacceptable with children. With small children, they say, "No, you don't get to change the rules now. We agreed on the rules, and we're going to stick to the rules." And that's why you do things. We shouldn't have to do toddler approach with Republican officials, but that's Rudy. Rudy's crazy. Rudy's making a complete fool out of himself. He's embarrassing himself, but so he doesn't mind embarrassing himself and making a fool out of himself, telling people to do stupid things on behalf of Donald Trump. So then Sidney Powell, remember the loony lawyer, the one who's too crazy even for Donald, the one that the Trump campaign distanced himself from because he's too crazy even for Donald Trump, which is really scary that, and out there being crazy or knocking her crazy stuff out. She's filed for a temporary restraining order in Georgia because the election officials will plan to reset their voting machines on Monday, which would erase data that she thinks is important for a cracking lawsuit. Now, temporary restraining order is really, really hard to get. You got a very, very high legal bar. She's not going to get a temporary restraining order. And part of the temporary restraining order is kind of like a preliminary injunction in the sense that you have to be able to prove that you're likely to win the underlying suit. Is one of the criteria for getting a temporary restraining order. And she's not going to win. She's not going to do diddly shit. So she's crazy, and she filed exhibits with her petition for a temporary restraining order. And her first exhibit came from that guy that crackpot who gained notoriety several months ago for claiming that he's the guy who invented email. He didn't invent email. He's a crackpot. He's as crazy as Powell is, and so please. So she's still out there being her crazy self in Georgia and wasting public funds by making judges have to read this garbage. So anyway, she's crazy on behalf of Donald Trump. So Trump crazy with crazy lawyers, too crazy for Trump, but still being crazy. So then there's up today on Twitter a video clip from John Voight, 8,000-year-old. Are you sure you're still alive, John? Senile, decrepit old John Voight, saying Donald Trump's the only man who could save this nation. I'm like, well, that's really sad. That's a shame because Donald Trump's not going to be president very long. I'm so sorry he didn't save the nation while I had the chance for 4 years. Save the nation from what is not entirely clear, but it seems like the only logical answer is the hegemony of white Christians, which, the white Christians did step down the United States, but the rest of us are going to do a fine job governing in our own way once we take over, and it doesn't matter if John Voight likes that or not. John Voight's a crazy old senile old fool. And so but quite apart from people who are supporting Donald Trump, then there are reporters who did a really lousy job again in 2016 of obsessing over Hillary's emails and not really telling anybody, the public in general, about how crazy and stupid Donald Trump is, and thus allowing him to appear to be a credible candidate for president, which he wasn't. I mean, except for the fact that he managed to win by a little bit of sheer luck. But anyway, but people are still writing about, Donald Trump, he's really a normal human being. He's just an old guy, just like the rest of it. and we're trying to make him seem as normal as possible. And so they're still writing, or if he's not, he's going to turn out to be, he's going to switch around, all of a sudden magically become normal and saying any minute now. We just need to give him another minute. So a recent story that says he's still raising funds off of his ridiculous attempts to reverse the election, which, I mean, if you're stupid enough to give them that money, that's your problem, but I still wonder whether or not he thinks he can just keep any money he raises after he after he leaves office, which he can't, but anyway. But then he's still raising money off of stupid attempts to reverse the election, but he's slowly coming to terms with losing. No, he's not. There's absolutely no evidence to indicate whatsoever to indicate that he's coming to terms with losing. If you're coming to terms with losing, he would not be busy changing the personnel of the committee that divides the Department of Defense. That's not something you do on your way out the door. That's potentially. I mean, it might be easily reversed when Biden gets office, but it's the kind of thing you do if you expect to, be continuing to interact with the order the Department of Defense around for the indefinite future, and he's not going to be doing that. He's going to be doing it for another maybe month, 2 months, but then he's going to be out of office and he won't be matter. It won't matter. And then, of course, he is now, so the Congress just passed a Defense Authorization Act, which is basically the way they're going to fund the Department of Defense. Now, there are probably a lot of things that any reasonable person could object to. Democrats go along with spending way, way too much money on defense. The amount of money we spend on defense is just obscene and stupid, and we need to talk to the Democrats about how we don't want them spending that much money on defense anymore. They need to stop that. But that's a separate issue. Right now, they cooperated with the Republicans to pass a Defense Authorization Act. And Donald Trump is going to veto it. Now, the ostensible reason why Donald Trump says he wants to veto the Defense Authorization Act is because it contains this provision that's people have been going back and forth on for some time now, over the idea that we need to change the names of military bases that bear the names of Confederate military leaders, which seems kind of obvious. The Confederate military leaders did, after all, technically commit treason. None of them ever got prosecuted or convicted for treason. But they did, in fact, take up arms against the United States government. So that sounds like treason to me. And of course, the Constitution contains a definition of treason, and I think this fits the definition of treason in the Constitution. And so they got Andrew Johnson was the worst president for Donald Trump because of the fact that he was the one who let all these people off the hook and let them pardon them and let them have their political power back after the Civil War, which was a really, really bad idea, really stupid, really set up the situation where we then had, active discrimination, racial segregation against the newly freed slaves and their descendants for 100 more years after that. And that's all on not all of it, most on Johnson's shoulders, because Johnson's the guy who screwed up after Abraham Lincoln died. And Abraham Lincoln should have picked him as vice president. But that's, anyway, so we can go down there a long way, but let's not do that. Let's not go there right now. But anyway, so we have military bases that bear the names of various Confederate generals, and we should change their names. And Congress is telling the Department of Defense, okay, change the names of these military bases. And Trump supposedly doesn't like that. But the real reason why Trump doesn't like this bill is because what also happened was that the Democrats and the Republicans, don't tell anybody. They very quietly, everybody talks about bad backroom deals. Well, that's right now. It's the only thing getting anything done. They very, very quietly adopted language that the Republicans as well as Democrats supported, changing the rules dramatically for how to prevent money laundering, including requiring revealing the identities behind a lot of these secret limited liability corporations with secret ownerships, which is the favorite device for people like Steve Bannon and other people like that Trump probably presumably likes and cooperates with, and that Trump and his plundering buddies use to launder money all the time. And Trump doesn't like that. He doesn't want to have to be able to reveal who's laundering all this money laundering, buying all his condos with cash and all this kind of stuff. So that's the real reason I don't like the bill. So we'll see what will happen if Trump does in fact veto the bill. As one observer pointed out, if Trump vetoes the bill, then it's pretty likely at this point, since again both had the people from both Republicans and Democrats supported it. There's a pretty good chance that the Congress will try to vote to override the president's veto, which they can do if they get 2/3 majority in both houses of Congress. The Constitution clearly provides, it says the president can veto a bill that Congress passes, but then if Congress can go back and after the president vetoes it, pass it again with 2/3 majority in both houses of Congress, then it becomes law even over the president's veto. Look to see who votes against overriding. Whether it happens or not, see who votes against it. And those are the people who are still in favor of allowing as much money laundering as possible, or not change the rules on money laundering, and presumably the new rules are better than the old rules. And so if you like the old bad rules, or not bad, but less adequate rules for money laundering, then you're going to vote against overriding the president's veto if the president actually does veto this, which he said he was going to do. Now, who knows with Trump, you can never tell what's going to happen from day to day. So he might, for some weird reason, decide he wants to go and sign it and get it over with. But anyway, So, as usual, again, the Trump insanity continues and it's going to continue, presumably at least until he leaves office. But it will end someday. That day is just not yet. So let's keep everybody hold on tight. Keep your head down. Watch out. Try to avoid Trump. Don't get in Trump's hairs, crosshairs, because he'll try to shoot at you because he's a crazy idiot. And but hold on tight. Trump's insanity will come to an end someday. So bye bye and bye bonds. Thanks for watching. Come back again soon. Bye bye. Bye bonds.